I really cannot understand just one thing that Russians do, not as a person, not as a scientist, not as a Ukrainian, not even as a psychiatrist. Hello, I'm Dr. Sam, this is Dr. Sam's Health. Today I'm going to continue talking about the war in Ukraine, the situation in Ukraine. As I said in my previous videos, I cannot really continue making my regular videos about health, about nutrition, about science, just because something terrible has happened in my home country, and I feel that it's my duty to actually provide you with well-informed, hopefully unbiased opinions of what is going on there. And I've already made quite a few videos, several. I spoke about the history of Ukraine. You likely have seen my first reaction to the events of the February 24th, 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine. In my last video, I spoke about the war in general, what in my opinion happened. If you haven't, please check it out. And today I would like to talk about one big question that I have, and I will tell you right away, I don't have an answer to this question. So throughout this war, Russians have been doing one thing that completely is a complete enigma for myself. I cannot give a good explanation, and I'm pretty sure that they would have some sort of a very sick justification for what they are doing right now, but I cannot understand how they are planning to explain it to their children, to themselves, and most importantly, to Ukrainians. Prior to getting to the meat or the gist of today's video, I would like to make my regular disclaimers. First of all, I'm a medical doctor, I'm a psychiatrist. I'm not providing any kind of medical advice here on my YouTube channel, and of course, I might say certain things that sound as psychiatric judgments or medical judgments, but they are not such. These are just regular words that I might use. I'm not diagnosing anybody, I'm not suggesting any kind of treatments. What I'm doing, I'm just providing my personal opinion that might not necessarily represent the opinions of my regulatory bodies, my college, my universities, my discipline, psychiatry in general. I'm just making these videos for educational purposes and to convey my stances and my points. By the way, a friend of mine recently asked me, like, why are you doing this video? Who cares? Nobody cares. My answer to that is I do care. That is something that I believe is important, and if I can contribute to hopefully the ending of this war as soon as possible through these videos, I will definitely continue working on that. And I think that my opinion might be interesting for some people, and some people, especially in the West, they might not understand certain things. And here I'm providing these views, explanations in English. So let's get back to the topic. What is this question? The question is, why do you bombard, keep shelling civilian objects or cities in general? I will be honest, I was going to make another video today, but I specifically realized that I have to talk about that because several days ago, actually a couple of days ago, my home city, Kharkiv, has been quite heavily shelled for no reasons. Like literally, no reasons, no justification. And, you know, obviously there is no normal, humane justification for this kind of acts, but I would like to bring you back 4 months when this war started. They called it special military operation, and their goals, the goals of Russians were to demilitarize Ukraine, potentially to overthrow the government, to denazify Ukraine, and most importantly, they were talking about saving Russian-speaking Ukrainians or Russians who live in Ukraine from oppressive Nazi regime, and so on and so on and so on. The whole point was that they are saving us, and I'm one of these Russian-speaking Ukrainians. Again, I'm from Kharkiv, the city that is like 50 kilometers away from Russian border. And the whole idea of this stupid operation, or war, absolutely illegitimate war, by the way, was to save people like myself. They have attacked a number of military objects, which, okay, it is a war. You are trying to achieve your goals by doing so. Okay, I see the reasoning behind that as atrocious as it is. They attacked number of civilian objects, such as uh, city councils, city halls, the TV stations and TV masts, all these infrastructure objects. And I can even justify that. I can understand why they're doing this. They want to incapacitate the army, incapacitate the government, cut the communications. And by the way, they failed miserably in doing all of that. Maybe possibly because of Elon Musk and his Starlink, but Ukraine still has internet, all kinds of communications. That's actually very weird, because the second army in the world cannot achieve such a simple goal. But not even then. From the get-go, there have been shelling a number of civilian objects, such as schools, different sports centers, supermarket, you name it. They have attacked pretty much all kinds of buildings, like hospitals, actually, a very famous one in Mariupol. And also, at least in my city, but pretty much everywhere else, there have been heavily shelling, like, I cannot call them dormitories, but we've got this sleeping quarters where there are lots of multiplexes, like apartment buildings where multiple people live, and they literally sleep there. That's why we call them sleeping quarters. And they have been shelling down. Even in my own city, the home city of mine, as far as I remember, like a month ago, there were at least 2,600 of these buildings that were destroyed. And that is something I do not get. Okay, you attack military infrastructure, you attack power grid, you attack communication centers. But why do you keep shelling these buildings, the apartment buildings? It is ridiculous. And how do you expect people who live there, and to be absolutely perfectly frank, some people before this invasion were actually quite pro-Russian in my city and many other places, especially in the eastern Ukraine. There were all this collaborating people, separatists, and they were obviously thinking about some sort of political measures of bringing Ukraine closer to Russia. But nobody could ever think about Russia actually invading places like Kharkiv, for example, my city, where there are quite a few people who did a lot of business with Russians. Again, Russia is very close. People mostly speaking Russian there. And now what you're doing, you are just like saving us from ourselves. I do not understand how you guys are thinking about explaining it to the citizens of Ukraine, or even Russians living in Ukraine, who have been heavily bombarded, who have lost their relatives, their friends, who have lost their domiciles, who have lost all their livelihood in this unnecessary, idiotic war. So my biggest question is, like, why the hell do you do this? What are you planning to achieve? Is it actually a war crime? And I'm pretty sure that the answer is yes. So I can understand certain things, and it's a terrible thing to say, but I can see how you can, say, attack, bombard, hit certain civilian object where you clearly have information that there are some, I don't know, militants, combatants hiding, or some places where people are shooting at you from. By the way, you should think about it. In Eastern, I always want to say Eastern European, Eastern Ukrainian cities where everybody is pro-Russian, in your stupid opinion, people are fighting back so fiercely. Maybe because of all these atrocities that you're doing. Maybe because of this war being so stupid. But my point again, I can understand that you can think that there are some militants or combatants fighting back from these places. Okay, they might be like 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 or 20, 30 of these places, but not 2,600. We're not talking about thousands of multiplexes that you have been shelling all these 4 months, from day 1 or 2 at least. That's what I know from my friends who live there, and they have been reporting that these shellings never stop for a single day. You know, people, there are certain pro-Russian people who who I've spoken to, who told me that, well, there are these militants there in Kharkiv. The Russians were going to withdraw, and these militants started shooting civilians. This is like total nonsense. If you hear it somewhere in like pro-Russian news, this is total BS. It never happened. It would never happen in a city like Kharkiv. People there, indeed, they speak in Russian language mostly. Some of them have had some business with Russia, and some of them even wanted Russians to, not to invade, but to be closer to Ukraine. But, this is just ridiculous. Again, some of these people who I have spoken to were mentioning that, in 8 years on Donbass, Ukrainian armed forces have been like shelling civilians. It is actually not true. They were not shelling civilians. I assume that there might have been some accidental death of civilians or accidental misfires, literally military errors or mistakes during this interchange of artillery strikes, rocket strikes, and so on. But it had never happened to this extent. When we got a city, and I don't even have to give you examples of Mariupol or places like that, they were completely ruined. Literally, there is nothing there left. Cities like Kharkiv, 1.5 million, the population of the city, close to 3,000 civilian buildings have been destroyed over the course of 4 months. And, when you just attacked, I can see some justification for all these fights, making mistakes. But right now, we kicked you out from Kharkiv and Kharkiv region mostly. You keep shooting, shelling, sending your rockets our way every single day. And we know for sure that that we don't want you there. We know that you are not going to capture the city and the region. You clearly know what our stances are, and there is no way you're going to invade and capture it. You're just too weak. You're not capable of doing so. But given all of that, why the hell do you keep shelling civilian quarters? This is just ridiculous. Not for a single day. You haven't stopped. You haven't stopped for a single day doing this BS. There are people dying every single day because of this artillery strikes, because of the rockets being sent to my home city and many other cities, many other places all over Ukraine. This is just ridiculous. It is a war crime. And I want you to understand it. And that is something that you will never be forgiven for. And that is something that will never be forgotten. I'm sorry, maybe it was too emotional, and it was a very short message that I kind of spread over the course of a relatively long video for this kind of message. But that is something I find hard to live with, and I cannot understand why they are doing this. And to all my pro-Russian encounters, people I know who keep using some sort of rhetoric of just you just don't understand. Just like put yourself in our shoes. Just try to understand Russia. Russia had these goals and so on. Put yourself in the shoes of all these pro-Russian people, Russian-speaking Ukrainians who are oppressed in Ukraine. That has never happened to the extent that it would require military invasion of any scale, let alone of this scale. And to those of you who belong to this camp, pro-Russian camp, please, for God's sake, think about this and answer me this question. Why the hell do you keep attacking civilian objects, killing civilians all over Ukraine? Specifically, great example would be Kharkiv. Okay, that was my question. Thank you so much for watching. As always, please help me spread the word. Please help me making this series of videos more visible. So please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, ask questions, leave comments. I'm happy to interact with everybody. And I will keep doing what I'm doing. Thank you so much. And by the way, check out my website, drsamshealth.com. It's not particularly important at this point, just because I don't have much time to update anything there. But I hope that at a certain point I will be able to re-engage in my health and fitness related activities. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.